another step. If you catch me when I fall for you, 'cause I'm falling, if you promise to be.
Good day, everyone. So recently, and I'd say 6 days ago, probably about 6 or 7 days ago, I had put a video on 2 of my social media accounts, and in this video it was a short clip, only 60 seconds, of an individual at a wedding, and he was overcome with emotion. Some of you may be familiar with the clip. It's been circulating around the social media chitlin circuit, and I opened, I invited comment and perspective, more specifically on what were some of the first things that people felt or noticed or took notice of upon first seeing the video. And I wanted to wait for a while. I didn't share my perspective because I wanted to keep it very open to allow others to really share what they were expressing, authentically. And, we got some really good comments, and I wanted to share the video and just share a little bit of my perspective. I'm not going to go too much into it, but I wanted to share some of the comments that others had lended to the video that you just saw, that started off this segment that I called the SIMPsons, all right, and SIMPsons. So I'm going to just read a couple of the comments and let them kind of float out there. And I invite you all definitely to comment as well under the video and tell me, what you thought of it. Now, one of the things that I noticed, it was a very interesting difference between how the females responded to what they witnessed in the video as opposed to how the males responded. And then you could even see some of the males kind of coming under the standard of the females and their responses. And it's almost similar to what you see in the video, where you can clearly see the response of this individual is very feminine. There's a lot of the females had commented that for them it was like a sign of strength for a man to break down like that. But I'm going to read some of the comments and I'm going to come back to that. So one of the comments, I'm just going to go through them in no particular order. I have 2 of my windows up here. I have my, let me grab my other one. I have my Instagram account and I have my Facebook because I put it on the 2 of them. Okay, so Queen of Melanin 81 said, I thought it was so beautiful. Not every day do you see a grown man brought to his knees with tears of joy for a woman that he loves. And then I commented and said, okay, comment number 1, thank you. And Alien Black Girl said, my first thought was that the young child was experiencing black love firsthand, seeing a black man show emotion and excitement for his bride and actually witnessing the union. What I see here is a positive seed being sown in that little boy. Gigi, the storyteller, said, I see a man in love. I see his joy. Sapphire 615 said, greetings, Baba. I've seen real infinite emotions coming from a man for his woman, for whom she is, become and have made him become. And to see her walking the distance to him and the situation there in that present moment was truly surreal and divine for everyone involved. And I said, peace and love, like they say, an image says 1,000 words. You definitely have extracted a lot of content from their moment. Anwar Art of War, he said, I understand the emotional value and don't disagree with it. Okay, here is the quote unquote but. When it comes to combining or creating a union, a man should show confidence and strength. He should display confidence and intent. Tears of joy should not weaken the legs, but strengthen the back and energize the blood. Exclamation mark. All right, so that was, there was a bunch of comments on my Instagram account, which is @Chief Yuya. if any of you want to check that out. But now let me go over to the Facebook, which is actually the same thing. It's at Chief Young. And Pedro Pond said, I could only laugh a little at first, but I see the man got the woman of his dreams. And I said, yes, he's definitely a dreamer. Hermin Dormin Dobson, she said, greetings, Chief. The first thing to come into my mind, it's a funeral, and a little boy looks confused. Diedrich Tucker said, I got to give it to him. It takes a real man to break down like that in front of people. And I responded and said, there are so many variables when it comes to personal boundaries and levels of disclosure. There are also so many reasons why those are maintained and often crossed. Fasay Fell says, I love that connection you spoke about in one of your segments. Diana Williams said, beautiful, wish someone would cry for me like that. Daryl Arch said he's had a longing, quote unquote, for quite a long time. Let's see. Maul Tsunami said, LOL, the little boy looks like this is some BS. Melanie Miller said, wow, absolutely beautiful. And it's a bunch here. Again, you can go to my Facebook page and check them out, if you want to read the rest of them. So I just wanted to read like a sample of some of the things that were said for you to get a perspective of some of the, the variety. And matter of fact, even on Instagram, there was a little bit, I think it was maybe a little bit more variety. Like Camille Banks Lee said, good afternoon. I'm struck by the young boy who seems confused by the ritual and his father's reaction to the woman/bride that I assume to be his mother. I know that for many, marriage is akin to winning the lottery. I know that my next statement will not be received well. I thought he looked overwhelmed/shocked that she decided to show up and go through with it, more than him being struck by her beauty. I cannot imagine that the young boy has any comprehension other than that his father is very emotional. Yeah, so there were actually a couple of women who expressed a similar sentiment in that their concern went to the little boy. Ra the Master, in fact, said, simp, period. Why is this male on his knees? So I wanted to post it because I found it interesting myself, because a lot of times when it comes to expressions of feelings or logic or masculinity even, of course there's a lot of stark disparity between what females would say is acceptable or even beautiful or awesome, which are some of the adjectives that you heard, and what men or males may say. So the perspective often is very different, and the reality is sometimes we don't realize that the imperative is different. As a man, when I saw that video, I'd say my initial gut reaction was, it looks like if you listen to the video, you will hear some people laughing in the background. You'll hear somebody saying, oh no. And it didn't sound like those type of oh no's, like a concerned oh no, like, oh no, my nephew's getting ready to lose it or something like that. It was a oh no, like here we go again. If you notice the people who were around him, they were very quick to respond to him as if he does this all the time. Now, when he was clapping and turning around in circles, any of you familiar with the Negro church, you'll be familiar with that. That's a standard staple dance move. Clap, turn around, usually throw your two arms up in the air, cry. Whether you're male or female. One of the things in the Negro church that's always very prominent is the ambition for the males present to lose as much of their masculinity as possible, and to have formless, fluid expressions as often as they possibly can. So even when they do things like shout, or some people call it getting happy, they'll dance like women. They'll tiptoe and tap dance like women while they're shouting. They'll take out their handkerchiefs and throw them in the air. Even often the way they dress, from the very tight suits to the paisley and the different colors that are utilized. It's a very effeminate space, and masculinity is not really necessary in terms of establishing any type of status or structure inside of the Negro church. In fact, the more feminine you are, usually the quicker you'll be appointed to an office of prominence. So in seeing the way he was purporting himself, there was a lot of things that I noticed. But the first thing was that it looked like people were very ready for that type of response out of him. Also, his face, he has the face of someone who looks like they cry all the time. You know, I pay attention to physiognomy. All right, it's something that I pay close attention to because the physiognomy never lies. And the first thing, or one of the first things I noticed after everyone jumping to his aid was that I looked at his top lip. I said, he looks like a whiner and a crier. You know, he looks like droopy dog, you know, and he didn't look strong. So I found it very interesting that, and I know, of course, these statements may not be received well, but you can learn or you can maintain your opinion and your feeling. But the truth is, by some of the statements that were said, they were not really dissecting the actual event in the moment. As soon as someone says something like this, it's beautiful that a man is, or it's beautiful to see a man express himself like that. Well, how do you know that he was a man or he is a man? You have no proof of that whatsoever. So you see, this is one of the dangerous places that we get into a lot of times, because it's very easy for people to imposture themselves as something that they're not. He didn't look like a man to me at all. I felt no warrior spirit or energy coming off of him whatsoever. None. Not one inkling. He looked like an overgrown, he looked like a 5-year-old, an overgrown 5-year-old in a suit. Okay, so I didn't sense, the little boy actually looked more brolic than he did. All right, so starting there. And then on top of that, how do we know that he was marrying a woman? The other thing that was said, you know, was that about his son. That's probably not his son. That's probably his stepson, you know, or his soon-to-be stepson. The boy didn't look like him, you know, and I know I could be making some grand assumptions here, but, you know, I'm not saying anything concrete. But one of the things I am saying concrete is that, no, he didn't look like a man, and he definitely didn't purport himself like a man should. You know, when this is a day and a moment when you have family and community nearby, and you're saying vows to not only affirm your love for one another, but to affirm your responsibility and role in one another's lives. And you're showing this woman and everyone else, which it seemed like they already knew, but you're showing them from the very beginning that you cannot handle pressure, that you do not have emotional control. So one of the things that went through my mind, I said, you know, the only way he should be acting like that, because, you know, I'm always trying to find a duality, different sides of why something may be before I draw up a judgment. And I said, okay, if she has been in a wheelchair all of her life, or if she was in the hospital the day before and told him that, you know, she would be coming down the aisle in crutches, that's the only reason why he should be behaving in that manner. And I'm serious about that. That's the only thing I was going through my mind, is saying, what would justify such sissified behavior out of an adult male? And I said she would have had to have been in the wheelchair the day before, and he's seeing her walk maybe for the first time, or just thought she couldn't walk, and he's just so happy for her. That's it. But outside of that, a lot of times you'll find adult males who will put on shows like that, you know, and it's just a sexual version of buck dancing. Because you know that you present yourself from the get-go as non-threatening. You're letting all of the alpha males in the room know that you're willing to come under their authority. You're not a threat. So that way you can be embraced. You're letting the females in the room know that you're a simp. You know, so that's always going to get you the simp credit. But as far as presenting yourself as a family head and as a family lead, or a future family head, a future family lead, she looked more stable and sturdy on her feet than he did. In fact, she was laughing. You know, now we could say she was smiling, but I'm going to say she was laughing. You know, she probably had this child here, and she found this big giant simp to take her on and her child. And I know for some of you this may seem very harsh, but you're probably used to the way I say and present things. But understand this. For you female, because that's the main ones who's going to say that's not fair, it's going to be your females. When it comes to things like this, a lot of times your opinion doesn't matter as much as you think it does, because we live in a society where a lot of times you pick guys like this to have children with and to marry, and then you complain later about how weak they are. You come to men like me who are not like this and say, I wish my husband was more like you. You're so decisive, Chief. You have so much guidance, Chief. You're so strong, Chief. You don't take anyone's BS, Chief. But look at what you married, because you thought that was cute. You like the level of power and control that you were able to have. And a lot of people would do that. That's why you have to have fathers who would say, no. Like if that was my daughter, hell no. Hell no. And if I had never seen him behave that way, I would have paused that wedding right there on the spot. And I would have ran up on him and grabbed him by his lapels and said, what the hell do you think you're doing? Who are you? Now, anyone in my family, they know, he would do that. I don't have a problem destroying a moment. I don't care about the romance of the moment whatsoever. Obviously, someone like he does, It's all about that moment, But as men, we need warriors out here. All of this, a man breaking out, that's not sexy. I hear a lot of females say that. Oh, there's nothing sexier. If you listen, there was a show I did once on the Goddess panel some years ago, and a woman said that to me. I laughed. I just busted out laughing. She said something about crying. I said, well, I don't cry in front of my women. I never would. And she said, what? What? Well, let me tell you something. There's nothing sexier than when a man breaks down. So there's nothing sexier than a broken man. What is that revealing in your psyche? The fact that I'm strong is not sexy. The fact that I've been hardened by trials and tribulations and fire, and I can still stand in front of you and be tender and affectionate, but at the same time be the rock and the pillar that you, my family, my community, my elders, and my ancestors are calling for, that's not sexy. But I guess it's only sexy if it's expressed physically. Like if I go to the gym and I look like the rock, but I can be a punk on call. Or whenever you decide you want to go off, I can cry and say, baby, don't leave me. I guess that's sexy, you see. But stoicness, dignity, decorum, warriorhood, moving like a general, moving like a king, moving like a leader, that's not sexy. Because while you sitting there breaking down and crying and acting a fool, are you actually looking out for the woman? Who's behind her? Who's to the left of her? Who's to the right of her? Churches get shot up now. Are you aware of that while you're up there acting like a big fool? Probably not. But I bet you there were some men in that room who were looking at the exits, looking at the entrance, no matter what the moment was. Because in reality, weddings are proms for women. Real men know this. We're not stressed about a wedding. And most of the time when we're putting effort and energy into a wedding, it's for the benefit of the woman, but it's her second prom. We're gonna wear the same with black tux. Our boys will be there. But it's not really a big deal for us. You see. So, and I'm not saying that there was anything wrong with him getting emotional, or even if he cried. There's nothing wrong with that. But one of the things that especially when you're around your mate's family, and you have to constantly assure them and let them know that you're going to take care of something that is precious to them. That didn't show that. That showed weakness. And the reason why that video is floating around the country is because it showed black male weakness, and America loves that. America loves the weakness of the black male. America loves to see how its experiment has played out with putting, these matriarchs at the head of the community, these misinformed, misaligned matriarchs at the head of the community. What do they create? They create this. They create soft, simpish males and thugs. Yeah, I know you don't want to hear it, but that's the truth. That's what it is. Because they think things like that are cute. That's cute. Oh, he broke down. Well, what about when we need his strength? And again, look at him. Look at his face again. Now that I've said what I said, look at when he started to break down. He looked like a church boy. He looked like a mama's boy. He looked like he never had one fight in high school. Maybe he played football or something like that. But he looked like every Friday he was in the house playing video games. And it just continues. So now what does he give his child? What does he give his son? What does he give his daughter? More simpishness, more softness, more over emotionalism. You see? And for a lot of you who think it's cute and don't understand, I want you to understand something too. These are the type of guys who are sitting on death row right now because, they got with a woman like that, and she got with him because, she can control him. But see, there's still testosterone inside of him. He's still a male. So what happens in the course of time, she starts to cheat on him with someone who is stronger, someone who is more directed, someone who is more in control. And you remember, whether it's your love or your pain, or your love and your hatred, or your happiness and your sadness, there's a thin line between either one. And the same way he'll express himself and lose himself in a moment like that, that's the same type of guy that'll choke a woman like that to death for cheating on him. Or a shooter or killer or stabber. It's just something crazy. It's a lot of simps like that sitting on death row right now with a Bible in their hand, trying to figure out what happened. So that's not what we need right now. We need strength. That's what we need. We need warriors in our community. We need strength in our community. We need men who are in touch with their emotions and aware of their emotions, but are not using the standard of women or the emotional approval and head nodding and sanctioning of women to determine what the barometer of their feelings looks like. That's problematic. See, it takes other men. See that, and that's why when you're young, you get into fights and you're competitive with other boys, because you start to learn to value yourself amongst a herd of other young men. And it's the same thing with women. Your valuation comes there. But it's very easy. There's certain things that I don't know about womanhood. There's been times that I've been places with my youth, and maybe one of my daughters may have done something that I didn't pick up on. And it might have taken an elder woman or their mother to say, no, don't do that, sweetheart. Or don't wipe yourself with that type of paper. Use this or do that, or, things that I'm not aware of because I don't have female parts and I'm not completely aware of what the growth track should be from young lady to grown woman. There's some things I know and I can, acclimate them to some things, but there's a lot that I'm missing. So some things I may think is cute, maybe, and even though I don't, but let's say, for instance, you got a lot of fathers who think their daughters being tomboys are cute. She learns nothing about femininity, but you can go in the backyard and throw a football with her because you always wanted a son. But then as she grows older and she has to start interacting with men, she's completely lost. She doesn't know what to say, what to do. So she starts to use media as her guide and her instructor. And media only tells her to be hypersexual. That's it. You see? So it's the same thing happens on the other side. You have mothers a lot of times who will sit their sons in beauty salons all day with them. Who will go on the internet and take pictures with them, where the mother is naked and the child is naked, which is really pedophilic. But of course, when it's mother to son or mother to daughter, we're not supposed to say that. But think about if it was a man taking a naked picture with his daughter sitting on his lap or something like that. So just to give you an example, a lot of times without that balance in the household where the mother and the father are checking each other, saying, no, I don't want her to do that, or no, that's not good for him, or yeah, we're gonna let him play football, but babe, what if he gets hurt? Well, if he gets hurt, he'll be all right. He's got to get hurt. That's what being a man is about. Or she can't be you want to take your daughter somewhere with you. No, don't take my daughter to the barbershop with you. Drop her off at my mother's. I'm only going to be in the shop for 15 minutes. I don't care if you're in there for 5 minutes. She's going to hear things, and those grown men may look at it a way that I don't appreciate. You may not understand that because you never were a developing little girl. You see, you don't know how maybe 20, 30, 40, 50, 60-year-old men will look at a 12 or 13-year-old girl, because you were never a 12 or 13-year-old girl. So there's a system of checks and balances that are present when each person is standing in their proper positioning and their gender positioning. But, again, because we've become so effeminized, not only the United States is a very effeminate country, but again, in the Negro domiciles, they're primarily matriarchal. And they're plantation mentality based matriarchal. And you can see that in the video clip. I mean, you see the American flag and just the whole ceremony itself. She's coming down in a white dress, and that's not our culture. That's not us. That's something that has been adopted. So the moment you start to see certain emblems of external investment like that, you got to understand that there's going to be other things that are going to follow up. Like there's going to be behavior to show and prove that I am completely invested. Because I want to go to work Monday morning with my ring on. I want to go with the pictures from my honeymoon and let everyone on my job see I's invested. I'm not going anywhere, master. I's invested. I'm here. So it's just something to consider. And again, I'm only giving a snippet of what I observed and saw in the moment. And I wanted to wait, like I said, and there's still a lot, there's a lot of comments that I didn't even speak on. And again, I'm not speaking about a man being emotional. There was never a time that I dealt on a serious level with a woman and I didn't feel something, maybe at a pivotal moment, so that's a natural thing. You wouldn't, if you didn't have some emotion triggered in you, there'd be something wrong with you. But when you get to the point where you completely lose it, just at the sight, forget all of that. Well, he was so in love. That's not the primary emotion that men function by. That's feminine. It's like when you ask a person, he says, I had that with a friend some years back. He was getting married and I asked him, I said, why are you marrying her? He said, because I love her. And I told him, I said, that's what she told you to say. This is me and you talking. Why are you marrying her? We don't marry for love. That doesn't even make sense. Primarily also because of this reality. And some of you have experienced this on the segments that I've done on Chief Speaks. When people say things like that, I'll say, well, what is love? They never have an answer because they don't even know what love is. But you're using the word and you're making this very large and extreme life-changing decision based on something that you don't even understand. So that means you're just a zombie. You're just a zombie following those marching orders going into the dead land of marriage or more rich, which is just going into the swamps, going into the dead land. Like we say, the moors. What are the moors? Swamps, a wasteland. Mortgage, you're going into the swamp, the wasteland of your lifetime countdown to your demise without a clear understanding of why am I doing this? What does this mean? What does it mean to, for my offspring, for my heirs? For men, primarily, if you're building empires, your marriage should be about political advancement. It should be about creating heirs. That's it. All the other stuff, she's nice. That's not us. And again, there will probably be women who disagree, but you got to understand, I don't care what your disagreement is, because what you require and what you're supposed to do in your rites of passage is different than my own. So there might be some things that you may say, well, this is why I get married. It's not my place to say, well, you shouldn't say that. You shouldn't be emotional. I'm not a woman, and that's part of the problem. We've created such gender fluidity, and not realize where the campaign for gender fluidity has come from and why it's come from and how it's dismantled us and kept us weak. So we're not really expressing our gifts because we're so busy meddling in each other's space. You see? So as men, we don't know why we should get married, so we just pick the woman's reason. Just like you have women who go out and they want to take over the world and they don't know why. They find themselves in their mid-30s or early to mid-40s very unhappy. They have the degrees, they have the job, they have the car, they have the house or the condo or whatever, and they're just unhappy. And you say, well, why did you do all this to begin with? Because I thought I was supposed to, because my parents told me this is what I should have done. My grandmother always told me I should have my own, and don't depend on any man and this and that. But they didn't invest in anything else other than that. They didn't invest in any of their sacred feminine arts. So now they're 40, 50 years old, just now learning about what their womb is. They're learning about the sacredness of the yoni now. These are things that they should have learned before they had their first menstrual cycle. You see? But they had the menses and someone just threw them a box of maxi pads and all right, kiddo, come on, clean up. We got to get to church. And that was the end of it. So a lot of times it takes that stronger hand, and you're going to turn some people. Like I said, I know what I'm saying now. It's not going to make some people feel comfortable, but that's what manhood is about. It's not about appeasing everyone. It's about being unbending. And ultimately, again, a lot of women, when they get with guys like this who are very bending, who are very pliable, who are very soft, and who are very sissified and effeminate, later on in life, they look for that unbending man. They look for someone that they can base, because remember, like I always tell you, it is heterosexual men who create the frameworks for society, and it is the women and other kinds of men who absorb themselves into that. But in order to absorb yourself into it, it has to be a solid foundation first. So it is those solid men who create the society. You see, that's why so much that we may speak about in terms of wanting to topple over, in terms of things that we may be discontent with, in the larger society, we know deep down we really don't want to do that, because some of us do not have the fortitude to actually build something as strong. Even though we may say, well, my ancestors built this. Well, being a builder and an architect are two different things. It doesn't take much to say, and I'm not saying that our ancestors were only builders. They were visionaries too. But the image often that we have implanted in us, and this is second and third tier consciousness. Once we realize, wow, we built this and we built that, we picture ourselves only as craftsmen or craftswomen. We never picture ourselves as the innovators and the inventors. So that to be that, it takes a certain measure of fortitude to be an innovator. It takes a certain measure of fortitude to be an inventor, because you have to see something that no one else sees, and you have to stick to that vision regardless of what other people are telling you. Those are masculine traits. Now, I'm not saying that women cannot exhibit those as well, because they do. But that's them expressing their masculinity, because masculinity is expansive. It goes out and it creates. It's unbending. It pushes through like an arrow. It cuts through everything that's in front of it. It doesn't get to a moment and then, turn into jelly because of the tenderness of the moment. That's not masculine whatsoever. Now, if she decided to break down and do that, that's fine, because someone is holding up the pillar. Now, of course, in a gender fluid society, one would say, well, maybe she's the strong one and he breaks down. We can't afford that in the Melanoid community. That's what's got us where we are today. Maybe when we get back to that place where we have family and communal balance, then we can play around with some of that those special Kama Sutra positions where, the man takes on the feminine and the woman takes on. We can do that then. When we come to a place where the pressure is off of our back and the hellhounds are no longer clipping at our heels. But as long as we're in this position, we have to get back to the basics. And though things that may be cute, or they appear cute to us, they may seem innocuous, they're not. Oftentimes, things that we think are funny really aren't funny. Things that we think are endearing really shouldn't be endearing. Things that we think are cute are really not cute. We're applauding and we're laughing at him, and we're cheering on our own downfall, our own demise. So you have to sometimes be able to back up for a moment and use all of your brain. Don't just use your emotional aspect and say, oh, this is beautiful. Isn't that? It may be. I didn't see anything beautiful there. I saw just symptoms that were indicative of what the cause problems are in our community, and more so the fact that it was being broadcasted. I mean, it's been on major networks. The fact that it was broadcasted, and so many women, I wish someone would sing for me like that. Then you're part of the problem. You wish someone would break down and cry for you. Like, that means you want a weakling in your life. You want a simp in your life. You want a weakling. And that's a part of the internal insanity that this society creates. You want someone to break down and cry for you like that. But at the same time, you also want that person to be able to, or be willing to put their life on the line for you and to come out successful. You can't have it both ways. You can't be half poodle, half pit bull. It just doesn't work that way. As much as you may want it, you want the person, like I said, to look like The Rock. But internally, you want them to have the sensitivity of Barry Manilow. And that's what we have walking around the neighborhoods. Sensitive thugs. They all need hugs. All right, so I just wanted to leave that little bit of commentary. And again, if you disagree, well, that's cool. You know, it's just a perspective. You know, and I'm not trying to impose my perspective on anyone. And that's why I didn't comment. Really, I just wanted to give people their space. And they may say, well, Chief, you don't know what you're talking about. The problem is we have toxic masculinity that's running rampant, and these men need to learn to respect the feminine. You may say that too. That's okay. You know, everyone is entitled to their perspective. But as for me and my house, I know what we're doing, you know, and for those who see the value in what it is that I present and I share and the lifestyle that, you know, I offer through the works that we do. Well, now you see what my perspective is as that coordinator. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching and listening to this episode. I don't want to call it episode because I've just been jumping in and out, having fun with this, you know, and just sharing little insights outside of enlightenment and transformation. All right, so whatever we want to call it, but I'm calling it the SIMPsons. All right. And I have to throw in a little PS here. If you think what is being told to you right now by me is silly and I'm blowing it out of proportion, I want you to take a look at this little short next clip and understand that this is how you're being worked over. And you know, those of you who fell for the okie doke, or who can't see it above the clouds, or can't see through the smoke and mirrors and see what's really being said and what's really being done and what's really going on, then this next clip that you'll see, you'll love it, because this is exactly what you want to hear and how you want to be made to feel. All right, until next time.
Well, hey, how you doing? I really just hope you had a beautiful day. That's all I came on here to say. Look, keep coming on here looking beautiful like that. I can't see you right now, but I know if I was in front of you, it'd be hard not to smile. Hold on, let me try it. Smile right quick, and I'm gonna try not to even do nothing. I couldn't help it. You just beautiful. You just beautiful. I'm glad you clicked on this. Look, just give me a hug right quick. You real. Yeah, like that.